And when he spots a recently vacated office, he poses as a junior manager.
Hey, friends, welcome back to another interesting recap. My uncle, you're what? Oh God, that makes you Auntie Vera. Oh, welcome back, friend. Today's story is about a 24-year-old Kansas guy who embarked on an affair with his uncle's wife, his side chick, and on top of it all took over his job position as head of a big cooperation company. Just after Brantley Foster finished college, he was promised a job in New York, and as he was leaving Kansas for New York, one thing he promised his parents was that he was going to make a lot of money and come back to see them on a private jet. But in case things failed or went wrong, his mother gave him his uncle's number and called Howard Prescott to call for help. Besides the fact that they had bought him a round-trip ticket, when he got to New York, things were not as he expected. The job he was promised was no longer there, and when he tried to look for one in other companies, he was either underexperienced or young for the job despite having a good college degree. So because he was pushed against the wall and left with no other option, he had no choice but to use his uncle's number that his mother gave him. He chose to go see him in person at his workplace instead of calling, and when he got there, luckily he was given a job in the mail room, despite his qualifications for this job, and he had no choice but to take it even though it was illegal. He would sometimes go through the company mail, and this helped him to find the loopholes of Primrose's cooperation, the company his uncle was managing. There was this one beautiful woman called Christy Wills that he bumped into on his first day of work, and the only woman working for the suits from Harvard that he had a crush on, and he would not stop spying on her from a distance, though. One of his workmates from the mail room called Fred Melrose always told him not to bother because she was high league, but told him her name anyway. One day their boss in the mail room called Barney Radigan got a call to get a driver from his section for one of the executive's wives, and he assigned this task to Brantley to drive the executive wife to Litchfield, who happened to be Vera Prescott, the boss's wife, because she sounded rude and upset. Brantley asked if there was anything he could do for her, and she told him the reasons why she was rude and upset. She told him that her cook had quit that morning, her analyst had taken a vacation, she had spilled her nail, her Mercedes had broken down, and on top of it all, her husband was having an affair with someone younger at work. Because she was worried that she was looking twice as old from the day she married her husband, and yet he was not getting any older, thinking it was the reason he was cheating with young girls. Brantley's compliment to her was like, he hoped that when he is the same age as her husband, he gets to wake up every morning with a beautiful woman like her beside him every day. You can't imagine the kind of excitement it gave to Vera Prescott with a smile. She thanked him for his complaint. Because of his compliment, she could not stop staring at him from the rear mirror. And when they reached her very big mansion, she disclosed to him the kind of hell she goes through to stay young, like running 8,000 miles on a tennis court, swimming laps to the moon, aerobics, and jogging. But despite her efforts to look young and beautiful, her husband noticed less. She then called the office to tell them that she had occupied Brantley Foster with a task to make sure that he got full credit on his time card. And later on, she used her charm to get him into an affair with her, the attention she very much needed after the fan. She was going to make sure that her husband gave him a promotion at the cooperation, but he was like, he will find his own way to the top. And the other thing Brantley was good at was the sweet words that Vera wanted to hear come out of his mouth, reminding her how smart, young, and intelligent as they were about to have another good moment. Her husband got back from work, and when Brantley looked through the window to see who he was surprised that it was his uncle Howard Prescott. And the older woman he had just had an affair with was his aunt. So he panicked to find his way out of the mansion without being caught and almost got bit by a bulldog. Just like some people say, fake it until you make it. This was the slogan, Brantley. Since the cooperation was very big, there was an empty office at the building, so he made it his but used a different name called Carlton Whitfield. And because some departments didn't know that the owner of the office had left, they still called it for solutions, and Brantley would tell them what to do. At this moment in time, the company stocks were falling, and Howard Prescott was planning on massive cutoffs since Brantley had to play two identities at work, his and the other Carlton Whitfield, running Office 4319. He requested for a secretary to handle the work in his absence while working as the mail boy, and even though this was very challenging because his mail boss was always on his neck, it helped him get close to his crush, Christy Wills. He pretended to be part of the top executives who were just hired, and on top of it, he was against their boss's idea of cutoffs, saying that expansion was the way for the future of the cooperation. The other problem he had was his Aunt Vera Prescott, who didn't stop pursuing him since she was a very lonely, middle-aged, abandoned wife, and she cared less if he was her nephew or not because of how she always felt around him. And besides, her husband was out seeing someone else with no idea who she was. It is funny that VA's husband was cheating on her with Christy Wills Wills Brantley's crush, as Brantley was also doing his thing with his aunt. When Christy told Howard Prescott about Carlton Whitfield, he thought that Whitfield was a plant from Donald Davenport who wanted to buy out their company since he didn't hire any Whitfield. So he told Christy to get close to him to know the kind of information he was gathering. Christy Wills did as told, but as time went on, she started falling for Whitfield. She even disclosed her secret of being involved with a married man, and her reasons were that he was sort of separated at the time she met him, but she didn't disclose who he was. And later on that weekend, Christy and Whitfield spent their first night together as lovers because she had got herself a lover who was not married. And on top of it, Christy called Howard to end their relationship on the phone. Worst of all, and what he did. He lied to her that he was getting a divorce to make her stay, and on top of it to get her to trust he should. Her letter of Donald Davenport take over the company on Monday morning, since he was inviting all the key personnel of the company to spend a weekend at his house in Litchfield. He wanted her to be there too, and when he asked who she spent the weekend with, she told him it was Carlton Whitfield and was strictly business. But we know she lied when she said so, and given Howard had never met with Whitfield, he was eager to do so. She then asked him back the files she stole from Whitfield's office before they got deep, and Howard was like, he was to give them back if she went to his house for the weekend. To cut the long story short, one day Brantley and Vera met at Howard's office where they acted as if they had never met before, and she asked Howard to invite him to their weekend party to get to know each other. Howard accepted, thinking that he was going to use it to his advantage by asking Brantley to occupy his aunt, so that he could get his time with Christy Wills. His aunt introduced him to cooperate giants, like she promised him, who loved his ideas, and at night, they were all sneaking to cheat within the house. The truth came out that Brantley Foster was Carlton Whitfield, and Carlton Whitfield was Brantley Foster, which also gave Vera a chance to know the woman her husband was cheating on her with. She immediately asked for divorce since she always wanted it because the husband had no time for her. And for Brantley, he was so pissed at the fact that the married man Christy was seeing was his uncle who made her spy on him. Later on, Brantley and Christy managed to settle their differences since they all found themselves manipulated by their bosses, and because Brantley was very good at his job, and Christy too, alongside Fred Melrose and Jean, made a team that helped Vera Prescott to save the company of her father from Donald Davin, who was about to take over, getting Vera Prescott 50.1% shares of the company. Unlike Howard Prescott, who had drowned it, she fired him and gave the position to Brantley Foster and Christy Wills along with his colleagues. Brantley ended up with Christy, and Vera got herself Fred Melrose, another guy from the mail room. Thanks for watching. If you have come this far, and consider subscribing now.